Good morning, everyone. It is another beautiful day in Calgary here. Really sunny out, about 1 degree Celsius or so. And today we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different from what we're used to on the channel. So I'm just pulling up at the shop, Davenport Motorsports. Today we're going to be tuning a 6th gen Camaro. So come along and I'll show you how that goes. Okay, so we got it all strapped down. I guess I did a little bit of a disservice earlier in the introduction when I said it was a 6th gen Camaro. It's actually a 6th gen Camaro ZL1 1LE. And it's got it's kind of a bit of a road course package. So it's not really following one of the regular Davenport packages. But basically the modifications are Magnuson 2650, BTR Stage 3. We're not spinning it super fast. Like I say, it's going to the road course. So it's got a 90 mil upper and an 8.65 inch lower. And it's got the big Gulp, it's got a bunch of cooling mods. I figure we can go over it here. And there she is in all her glory. So it's got the Katech 103 throttle body. It's got a Lingenfelter expansion tank. One of the biggest things with these cars is being a PD blower, you have to try and keep them cool on the road course. So they're going to spend most of the time when they're on the course at probably 4,000 plus RPM engine speed, which depending on what your pulley combo is, could be pretty fast on the blower. So definitely got to have good cooling mods. This one's got headers. And yeah, so basically we'll just kind of go take you through the tuning process and see what she makes. So we'll get it started. Basically just going to get it connected to the dyno. Get our O2 sensor set up. Enter in the customer's information. Okay, so we got that all set up. Got to get our O2 sensor going, and we'll open the door, get the fan going. And then the first thing that we have to do is that we have to roll it in. So basically what that means is the straps are all tight, but they're not tightened down. So I'm gonna actually get in the car, roll it into the roller and see where it levels itself out. It's gonna move a little bit. And then once it's settled, then we will tighten it down.
get going. Hopefully it won't be too loud in here. Obviously the car is pretty loud, but... So essentially the stuff you've seen so far is just basically a bass tune. So when these cars are going under the knife and actually getting everything installed on them, I will go in and I'll set up a tune that's just, you know, the basics to get it running and driving, so they can start it up, run a cold cycle through it, you know, get gas, wash it if they have to, whatever. And then once it's on the dyno here, then I'm gonna go through and actually do a custom tune. So I don't actually copy over any tunes or anything like that. Everything, there is a process that goes through. Every vehicle is custom tuned. There's no copying and pasting here. And I've just had better results with that. So like I've tried in the past, you know, copying cables over, but different model years, or even different, the same model in different years, like 1 year off, like GM's always changing things. The way that the computer works on each of them is a little bit different. So I just have a process, I go through my process, and then I get the same results every time. This customer opted for an RTD. These are super handy. Davenport has their own branded ones. Basically they're like a light version of the MPVI, and you can actually access it with your phone and stuff. They just updated the software. I haven't used the newest software, but I've been hearing really good things about it, so I'll have to give that a shot here. So right now I've got it idling about 800 RPM when it's all warmed up. Stage 3s I usually like to keep around there. With a manual, we might be able to go down to a little 750 or so, but it's really just depends on the driving experience and how much chop you're gonna get out of the cam. So the lower that you idle it, the more chop it's gonna give you, and then, you know, but obviously there's other drawbacks to having a big, inefficient cam down low. Okay, so let's do our first pull. So basically we're gonna start with very low timing, like very safe timing, and then I've got a pretty good guess on what the fueling is gonna need, but we may do a partial pull depending on what the fueling does. And then we're always gonna tune our fueling first, and then we'll start to sneak up on time. That was pretty good. We were able to get most of a full pull through there. It was a little bit rich, but that's fine. If it went lean, I probably would have got out of it and added a little bit of fuel, but she was a little rich, so we'll lean it out on the next one. Looks like, so we got it up to about 6,000 RPM, and it was making right about 11 PSI there. So that should be good for the road course. I like to keep as many things consistent through the pull as possible, so I'm always going to have it in the track mode. And here we go. Get a full pull on that one. So we took it all the way to 7,000. But this pulley setup, it's probably going to want to, and this cam setup, it's probably going to want to keep making power above 7,000. But we'll see what it does at 7,000 first. So on that one, it made 680 wheel horsepower and 608 foot-pounds of torque. Alright, so we got our pulling pretty clean. Looks like it's pulling a little bit of throttle, so we're just going to have to tweak the virtual torque tables. I should mention that we're doing all of our tuning with HP tuners. I've done pretty much all of my tuning with HP tuners ever since I started 10 years ago on my Chevelle. And it's always worked out great for me. I like them. it didn't close the throttle at all on that one. Nice smooth pull. Made 708 horsepower and 636 foot-pounds of torque. I may as well show you the dyno graph on that one.
Okay, so there's the pulls that we made so far. As you can see on the first 3 pulls, it looks like it was dipping kind of right in here. And that was just because it was pulling throttle. Obviously, you know, it depends on the tuning process. So basically on these cars, you've got your torque model, your fuel model, your air model, and you kind of have to get them all match up. So what I like to do first is get my fuel model good, and then I'll go in and kind of tweak my, my torque model just so that we can keep the throttle happy. And then after that, we're going to start sneaking up on timing. So we've still only got, I think, 14 degrees peak timing in it or so. So we're definitely going to pick up quite a bit more power. I'm guessing this one is probably going to be around, it's going to be real close to 800 wheel, I would say. And we're making about 12 PSI right up here. So the other thing that we have to kind of account for, a bit of a disadvantage for us, but we are at 4,000 foot altitude here right now. So you'll see on the dyno that we're correcting 14%. So that's taking, basically there's a weather station in the dyno, and it's taking the temperature, the humidity, and our elevation, so which comes through in the pressure reading there, into account. So basically this car, so these dyno numbers, that's a lot of things, it's one thing a lot of people don't seem to understand. So we'll just go through that quickly. These dyno numbers are corrected. So if you take your car to the racetrack at this elevation and you do a calculator and you think it's going to run what 707 wheel horsepower is going to run, it won't. It's going to run about 14% less than that, because this is not a real number. This is a estimation of what it's going to make at sea level. If you take this car to sea level with this exact same setup, it's probably going to run a little bit faster than what that number says. It's not a perfect calculation. It's pretty close. But yeah, we use that as a corrected number, just not only for our own stuff, but DynoJet, you can compare dyno to dyno a little bit more reliably than some of the other brands, that's for sure. But the biggest thing is just that, say this car comes back in the middle of the summer, we got to be able to compensate for the different air. One other thing you'll notice on this one is that it is peaking right at the very top. So I'm letting out at 7,000 RPM, and that's where it's making the peak horsepower. So in terms of blower efficiency, that's pretty normal. We're not really spinning this blower super hard right now, so it's going to want to rev. Basically, when you're spinning the blower, it gets more into its efficiency range, and so it's going to want to be making more power up there. So we could rev this thing to 7,500, and I'll bet you it's going to make a little bit more too. But what we'll do is we'll just make sure we get all our fueling perfectly dialed in, and we'll add a little bit of timing, and then we'll start to up the rev limit a bit.
Just to kind of go along with what I was saying about the corrected dyno numbers, one thing that I see a lot of people kind of mistaking online as well is that, like you saw earlier in the video, today it is 1 degree Celsius outside. But it is not 1 degree Celsius in this dyno room right now. It has a heater, we can't have our pipes freezing up and everything in here. So we are at about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which I think works out to like 20 degrees Celsius or so. So you can't really like look up, somebody posts a dyno number online and they go, oh, well, it was minus 40 out. So how is it correcting, 10%? Well, because it probably wasn't minus 40 in the dyno bay. So just keep that in mind. View on it, but it actually went really good. Let me see. So all I did was add 2 degrees of timing, and we picked up pretty good power. So obviously it's going to want more timing, so we're just going to keep sneaking up on that. and it made, like I say, a little bit more. So that was another 2 degrees of timing. Like I say, we're just sneaking up on it, and it's still picking up. I mean, it picked up 35 wheel horsepower just from 2 degrees of timing. So that's still plenty more to go. What you'll notice when you're tuning is as you start to get closer to, you know, your max timing or max efficiency timing, it's not going to pick up as much. So from here on out, we're probably only going to add 1 degree, and we're looking to kind of, as a general rule of thumb, I want to see it picking up at least 10 horsepower per degree. Okay, so on that one we took it up to 7,500 and it definitely responded well. It gave us 807 wheel and 660 foot-pounds of torque. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's basically where we're going to leave it. And I should talk, one thing that a lot of people don't really seem to understand is that octane is super important on these cars. Wait for the air to turn off. So, like, we can get Shell 93 here in Canada, specifically in Calgary, Alberta. I have tested pretty much all the other fuels that are available. Like, you know, there's Petro 94 and there used to be Husky 94. None of them are actually any better than Shell 93. And in fact, Shell 93 is far and away better than any of those other options. So these LT4 cars are pretty limited, like, straight from factory. Like, even on a factory tune, if you don't have good fuel in it, it's going to be pulling a lot of power. And then obviously when we start up in the power, we have to make sure that we maintain the octane. So this car actually doesn't have any MET. It is just straight pump 93. We do this by keeping the blower, you know, not making crazy boost. As you saw on that screen there, it was making about 180 kPa. Now we have to convert that for our altitude again because we're losing right off the top. So this car at sea level at 180 kPa, so let's just calculate it. At sea level, 80 kPa would be 11.6 pounds. But because we are at altitude, we have to add like another 10-11%. So really, this car at our altitude is making 13 pounds. So when we go to sea level, it should make about 13, 13 and a half, maybe 14 is what I've seen in my experience. So that's just something you got to keep in mind. And one other thing I want to mention about that, so generally to get that 800 wheel mark, we're going to be out of fuel. So one nice thing that we did is actually Katech sent us a couple pumps. So they have a new dual in-tank pump setup that we're just testing on this car. I've never ran one before. And our low side is looking perfect. It is following desired to a T. It hasn't dropped off at all. So that is looking really, really good. If this guy wanted to do some ethanol or something, I think we could even pick up some more at this boost level. But yeah, like I said, for pump gas, we're gonna leave it about here. Okay, so that is pretty much a wrap on this. Just went through, we set up our safeties, made sure that everything was going to be consistent. We actually blew out the O2 sensor, the wideband, for the dyno on the last pull right at the very end, so I wanted to get that plugged in, make sure that we got a good air-fuel ratio there. So that's looking pretty good, pretty consistent. Next thing we're going to do is go through and set up all of our modifiers. So basically, you know, if the engine gets hot or if the intake temps get too hot, it's going to start pulling power. And that's essentially just to save itself. So the hotter that your intake temps are, the hotter the engine is, the more prone for detonation everything is going to be. And we don't want these things to blow up. So we build a lot of safety into them, especially for this car since it's a road course car. Last pull. My estimate was pretty, I said what, like 813 or something like that, and it made 812. So just letting it cool down that a little bit. It wasn't super hot, like I said, it's got all these cooling mods, so it wasn't super hot before, but it's definitely happy right now. All right, good morning, another day here.
So last night, basically, we ended up making quite a bit of power on this car. I think it ended up, what, about 811, I believe. So that's pretty good. The only thing is that this car is going to the road course. So we don't really want to be running it that hard. Like, kind of 750 was our goal. We weren't sure exactly where the boost needed to be to get that, but it's a really efficient setup. So what we're going to do is drop the boost. We're going to put a 100 mil pulley on top instead. And we're hoping that will get us to about probably like 750. Is my guess. And then we're not turning the blowers hard, so if it's on the track for those long, 20-minute sessions, it's not going to be like getting overheated kind of deal. So I'll show you some of those dyno runs, and I've got some new mics, actually, some wireless microphones I'm going to try and play around with, see if I can get some better sound quality out of this stuff. So come along, and we'll do that. So this is where we ended up with the 100 mil pulley and the I think it was an 8.65 lower pulley. We are making 752 and 618 foot-pounds of torque. That's about 10, at our altitude here, like, well, corrected boost, it's about 10 PSI. So it'd probably make about 11 PSI where the customer is, which I think is gonna be perfect, and that's really good power, really, for not working the blower at all. The intake air temps are staying low, no issues at all. So we're gonna go do a little bit of road tuning, and then we'll finish this one off. Okay, so we're just out doing our street driving here. This is the 28. So as you can see, she's idling about 800. We've got the return to idle working pretty good. Basically just comes right back down and sits there on the idle. That's one big thing that I see with a lot of these cars is they'll either like bobble up and down, or they'll take forever to come down, or sometimes they dip real low before they come back to an idle. So definitely got to dial all that in. Obviously we're dialing in all the other street stuff, making sure that on the street it's going to make a little bit more boost just because of the load generally. This one's picked up about half a pound or so now. So I'll just do a quick little kind of walk around. You can see the vehicle, and this one's pretty much ready to go back to the customer.